Hello there and welcome. In this video you're going to learn how to create these crazy AI generated videos that you can find lately all over the internet. For this we're going to use Stable Diffusion and Deforum, which is an extension of Stable Diffusion that basically creates animations by generating many images and then placing them together. Of course, this is just a very simple explanation. The first thing we need is to have Stable Diffusion installed on your PC. And more specifically, the automatic 1111 web UI. So if you don't have it installed already, you can find a link in the description for a short tutorial on how to install it. It is very easy and free, of course. You can also find a link to my beginner's tutorial to learn the basics of the automatic web UI and Stable Diffusion in general, but this is optional. Now that you have the web UI installed, just go to the installation folder and click on the web UI user bat and wait for it to load. When the loading is done and you find this local IP address inside the console, then just open it inside your browser. In order to create our animated video, we will use the Deforum extension. So to install it, go to the Extensions tab, Available, click on Load from URL, and then find Deforum on this list. Click on Install, I already have it installed. Go back to the Install tab and click on Apply and Restart UI. Then you're going to see that you have the Deforum extension over here, but you're also going to get this Deforum tab over here. If you don't see it, it means that something is still not installed correctly. So either close this entire web UI and the console and reopen it, or click on Check for Updates to see that your extension is up to date. Before we go into the Deforum settings, we need two things. First is a model that will create the images. You can use any model that you want, but basically this will be the style of your animation. If you're new to Stable Diffusion, just use this model. This is what we're going to be using in this tutorial. There is also a link for this in the description. Just open this page, click on Download, and then copy the downloaded file into your main Stable Diffusion folder, into Models, Stable Diffusion, and place it inside this folder. Now you need to make sure that the web UI will make it the active model. So click over here to refresh and select the model from the drop-down menu. If you want to make sure that it was activated, just open the console and you should see this loading waits line with the name of the model. Now let's go into the settings of the Deforum extension. Just follow my explanation and make sure you do everything exactly as I do. I will explain some of the settings just so you will have the option to play around with them, but the settings that I'm giving you are my go-to settings and I don't really touch them that much. First, inside the Run tab, we are going to change the sampler and we're going to use this DPM SDE Keras. We're going to set the steps to 25. You can make it higher for better quality, but it will also take more time to create your animation, and with 25 steps, you're actually going to get good images. Next, we're going to set the size of the animation, and I usually use 450 on 800. This will have a ratio that is fitted for a phone, and of course, I'm making it rather small because with higher resolutions, it's going to take a lot of time to finish my animation, and if you have a weaker GPU, it can also crash and not work. Next, we're going to open the keyframe tab. Over here in the animation mode, we're going to select 3D. Border, we're going to set to wrap. Next, we're going to set the max frames, and this is important because this is the length of your entire animation. Later, I'm also going to show you where we actually select the frame per second for the animation, so both of them are going to work together. So let's say you want your animation to be a bit smoother, you're probably going to put it at 30 frames per second or even 60 frames per second. And if your entire animation will be 600 frames, then you're only going to get 10 seconds of animation. I usually use around 15 frames per second. So with 600 frames total, I get about 40 seconds of animation. And I think that 60 frames per second is way too much. The animation that I showed you in the beginning was 15 frames per second, and it looked pretty nice. So I really advise you to use a lower frame per second, and then you're going to be able to have longer animations, or you can simply use less frames and then the animation will be a bit shorter, but it will also take you less time to generate it. We are going to set it at 600 frames, and later we're going to set it at 15 frames per second, so it means that we're going to get 40 seconds of animation. If we scroll down a bit, we have this strength schedule, so we're going to set it at this value. And don't worry about copying all of these values. I'm going to provide them to you inside the paste bin in the description. So I'm not going to really explain the logic behind all of them, but over here we can control the movement of the animation, of the imaginary camera inside the animation. So you can see that the animation moves a lot to the right, to the left, up and down, and we can actually control all of this. But if you don't want to be too technical, if you don't want to touch this, just paste all the values that I'm going to provide you, and it should look pretty nice. Later, you can also play around with it. So I'm going to provide you this paste bin link, and all you need to do is go over here to all of these translations. And for example, we have translation X, so simply copy all of this and paste it over here. And then do the same for all of the other translations and rotations. So the logic behind all of this is that it will simply move the camera, it will move the rotation at certain points inside the animation. So when we reach frame number 90, it will move negative 2.5 on the Y rotation. Then when it reaches frame 180, it will move negative 2.8 on the Y rotation. So you can play around with it, you can change the way your animation works. For example, if you don't want the camera to move at all, you can simply put 0 on all of these things and then the animation will be completely still. Next, we will click on the field of view and we're going to change it as well. Then we're going to open the noise tab, and inside the noise schedule, we're going to paste this long formula. Again, you can find it inside the paste bin. Then we're going to open the anti-blur and we're going to change the amount schedule to 0.05. So now we are done with the keyframes. Next, we're going to open the Init tab. Usually in these videos that you see, people take a video of themselves and then they just cut out the last frame of the video and they provide this image into Deforum. And then Deforum knows to start the animation from this one frame. You can use any video editing software. I'm using Filmora, and all you need to do is drag some kind of initial video to your animation. So I have this video of myself punching a bag, and it simply goes all the way to this point. Now I'm going to take this frame because I want the animation to start from this frame. Later, we're going to add it over here and we're going to create a full video. But we want it to start from this one frame. And usually inside these softwares, you have an option to take a screenshot of this frame. So you simply click over here, snapshot, and then you save this one frame. Next, find your snapshot, open it inside some kind of picture editing software, and just make sure that the dimensions are the same as the ones that you gave inside Deforum. So this one is a bit lower, so I'm just going to crop it a bit. I'm going to increase it. We gave it about 800 on 450. So let's also increase it a bit. And now we have the same values that we gave into Deforum because we want all the images to be with the same resolution. So we're going to save this and then simply take the location of this image. So we can click over here, copy this and paste it over here inside this Init Image. You should probably also add the ending. I don't know if it's required, but I usually do it. And of course, very important, click on use init, otherwise it's not going to use this initial image. And all of this is optional. You don't have to have some kind of video in the beginning. You can start your animation from the first frame. So simply ignore this step and don't provide anything over here. Next, we're going to open the Prompts tab, and over here we need to provide the actual content of the animation. So the way it works is that we have the number of frame and then the prompt for what will happen at this frame. So it will basically create this image and then it will keep going until it reaches frame number 30. Then it will start merging into this image. And then it will keep going until frame 60. And it will keep going. Now, we have 600 frames, so you can play around. If you put it like that, it will simply do this image, then this image, and when it reaches frame 90, it will keep using this one prompt until it reaches frame number 600. So this is not ideal. Inside the paste bin, I provide you some kind of template, so you can simply copy all of this and paste it over here. So it already has some nice modifiers that will make your animation look good. All you need to do is add your actual content over here. So simply delete this and add the content for the prompt. And you can see that the frames are actually spaced out evenly. So it starts at 0, then 30, 60, then it jumps to 90, 150, 240, and the last one is 480, and it will reach until 600. Of course, you can change these numbers, you can add more prompts. Just make sure that if, for example, you're going to set it to be 400, and then over here you're going to say, start this one at 480, I don't know if it will crash Stable Diffusion, but it will be pointless because it will never reach this frame, right? But because we are reusing 600 frames, then it's going to be relevant and it will use this prompt from this frame until the last frame. Now, of course, I already created the actual content that I want to have, and I'm going to copy and paste it over here. And we simply have different prompts. And if you don't know how to build prompts and the way they should be, then you should probably see my beginner's tutorial, at least the first section about the prompts. You basically need to explain the AI what you want to have inside the scene. And you need to be as specific as you can. So I was not very specific, but I simply said a man punching a boxing bag with an explosion of colors. So it's a good advice to make sure that the first prompt is similar to your frame that you gave over here, because it will basically build upon it and then continue with the animation. So I actually described this frame that I had, and then I started changing it. So I was very random. I started doing things like a man with a blue halo around him, like a Super Saiyan punching an android. Then I said a beam of laser destroying a large city with skyscrapers. So you can see this is my content, and all the rest is the modifiers. And this will basically make the prompt look better. So just go wild, create whatever you want, and when you have everything done, you can also add negative prompts. So if you don't want something to appear inside the animation, you can add it over here. And of course, because we are on YouTube, I said nude and not suitable for work because I don't want these things to appear inside my animation. But for example, you don't want something else to appear like monsters, you can simply add over here monsters or scary, right? But you can add a lot of negative prompts and they will not appear inside the animation. Now that all of this is done, and this is really the longest part you need to spend time on, you go to output, and over here you need to select the FPS. So you remember I told you that we need to set the frames per second. So over here we set the max frames or the total amount of frames for the entire animation, but over here you need to set the actual speed for these frames. So if you want something smoother, you're going to put 60, but I think it's an overkill because all of these animations are usually a bit snappy. So I usually use 15. And you're going to see how our animation is going to look with 15. Then you can decide if you want it to be higher, lower. It's up to you. Now, of course, there's a lot of other options, but these are a bit more advanced, and the settings that I explained to you will create a nice animation. Later, you can spend time, you can play around with all of this. So all we need to do now is click on Generate. And it really depends on your PC, on your GPU. For me, I have a 1070 GTX, so it's a very old GPU. And for me, something like that with 600 frames, with 25 steps of quality, and with this resolution, it takes me about an hour and a half. So it may seem like a lot to you, but if you have a newer GPU, it's going to be faster. And anyway, all of these animations and generations are taking time because we're going to create a lot of images. So you can simply click on Generate and leave it for the night. You can do it when you go for lunch. Just do it when you're not actually using your PC because it's going to take all of the memory, all of the GPU, all of the CPU, and you won't be able to use your PC. Now, a very important thing is that it took us a while to put all of these values, right? So if you don't want to do it all over again, you can simply save them inside this file. If you click on Save Settings, it will save it inside this default file. And then the next time you open Stable Diffusion, all of this will be nullified, but then you can simply click on Load All Settings. Of course, you can also change it to a different file and give it a different name, but that's the way you save these settings. So I'm going to start generating this video because I have no clue what it will look like, and I'm going to show you the result when it's done. So now our animation is finally done, and we can know it by going to the console, and it says over here Deforum progress 100%. We can also see that the video stitching is done. And it took me 1 hour and 41 minutes with my GPU, with these settings. So if you have a stronger GPU, it's going to take you less. You can also change the settings and it will be faster if you use less frames and less steps. So if you want to find the location of the animation, you simply click over here on this folder, and this will open your image to image folder, and you can find different folders for each animation. So this is the animation we created today, and inside we get all of these different files, these different frames. So the first one over here is the actual MP4 file. So it took all of these frames together and created a video file out of them. Now I'm not going to show you the result yet. I first want to connect this video file to my initial video, and then when everything is going to be ready, I'm going to show you the final result. This will also be the first time I'm seeing the final result. So back inside Filmora or any other video editing software, we're going to have our initial video. We also have this snapshot that we took of the last frame. And now I'm going to drag the MP4 that was created inside. So first of all, we need to make sure that our project has the resolution of our MP4. So because we know the resolution, we can simply go to File, Project Settings, and change it to be Portrait. Now this is not the resolution that I set, but it's the same aspect ratio. So if I click on this and I go below to 800, you're going to see that we get 800 and 450. So it's the same aspect ratio, although it's not the same resolution. So let's put it back to this resolution. Now that we set the resolution of the project, we can drag our animation into the timeline, and you can see that it fits perfectly because it has the same aspect ratio, although it doesn't have the same resolution. Now we need to add the initial video, so we're going to move this a bit. We're going to take the initial video and place it over here, and then we're going to move it to the end. And if you remember, this frame was not the actual last frame of the video, so let's find this part over here, it was somewhere. So this is the last frame. I'm going to cut it and delete it. And now you can see that there's a natural transition. And the animation is starting. So that's basically all you need to do to create an initial video that transforms into an animation. The last thing I want to do is add some kind of music to this clip because it adds a lot to the experience of this entire video. So when I'm done, we're going to see how it looks. And this is the final result. So we created this entire animation together and now you can do it on your own. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. It will also help me a lot and support me. So if you just want to show your appreciation, you can also subscribe. And if you don't want to subscribe, you can just leave a like. It will also help with the algorithm. So see you next time.